All right, everybody, how are we doing this evening? Day 125 of the war in Ukraine. I am your host of this coverage, Andrew Mercado, from Mercado Media, independent journalist, U.S. Army veteran. How are we all doing, everybody? Comment in the chat where you're tuning in from, what city, what state, where in the world you're watching from. Thank you guys again so much for choosing Mercado Media as your source for the war in Ukraine. If you want to follow along, we do have a mini world news update that we include in the description of the video, and that is the biggest happenings throughout the day, and we include that in every single stream. Thank you to everybody that's sending stars. Thank you, Tony Singleton Houston, for the stars. Thank you. Ways to support during the live stream is stars on Facebook, YouTube, super chat, super stickers, becoming a member. There's gifted memberships now on YouTube. Thank you to everybody that's a patron on the Patreon. That's in the link. Thank you to everybody that is supporting Mercado Media. Thank you guys so much. So, here on June 28th, 2022, mini world news update. You can follow along in the description of our video. The leaders of Turkey, Sweden, and Finland have just signed a memorandum for the two Nordic states to join NATO, removing a Turkish bloc from the accession process, a source said. It's a three-way agreement on accession, the source said. So they just Turkey is no longer in the way for Sweden and Finland to join NATO. They're no longer going to be a roadblock in that quest. Ghislaine Maxwell, the jet-setting socialite who once consorted with royals, presidents, and billionaires, was sentenced to 20 years in prison on Tuesday for helping the financier Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls. U.S. District Judge Alison J, who also imposed a $750,000 fine, said a, quote, very significant sentence is necessary, and that she wanted to send a, quote, unmistakable message that these kinds of crimes would be punished. Prosecutors had asked the judge to give her 30 to 55 years in prison, while the 60-year-old Maxwell's defense sought a lenient sentence of just 5 years. Abortions can resume in Texas after a judge on Tuesday blocked officials from enforcing a nearly century-old ban the state's Republican Attorney General said was back in effect after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the constitutional right to the procedure nationwide. The temporary restraining order by Judge Christine Weems in Harris County came in a last-ditch bid by the abortion providers to resume services after the U.S. Supreme Court on Friday overturned the 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling that guaranteed the right of women to obtain abortions in the United States. The sixth day of congressional hearings into the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol featured Cassidy Hutchinson, a top aide to then-President Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Hutchinson's testimony focused on what Meadows and Trump knew about the attack in the days before and on January 6th, and informed by her close working proximity to both men. And so that is what occurred today for the January 6th hearings. And that is the rundown for the latest news going on in the world today. Right? Now let's talk about the war in Ukraine. We'll talk about the map first, and I'll give you guys the terrain features and everything that you need to know about this map before I get into it today. How is everybody doing? So, map. This is a map of Ukraine. Okay? Show you really quick. Here's the capital of Ukraine. Ukrainian cities will be circled in blue, right? Russian-controlled cities will be in red. So there's the capital of Ukraine. Russia has occupied this territory, and it's reflected in the black, but I'm going to circle it in green just so you know. Russia has had the Crimean Peninsula, which is here. This is Crimea. Has had that annexed since 2014. Same with Donetsk and Luhansk over here in the east, in the Donbass. Since 2014. 2014, right? Okay, so that's why it's also in black. That's why there's a dark black line around it as well. It's been occupied since then. The territory, now let's do like a different color green. Same green, but different color. Now this territory here and the southern axes this is 2022. This is the invasion. So this is when I came into play, and we've been covering this war since they pushed into this territory. All right, so we've been covering the war since they pushed into here and into here. The Russians used to be up here as well. Not anymore. They used to hold some territory up here. They used to be around here too. No longer. Ukrainians have pushed them back. So this is the map, and this is the locations and the terrain features. The red again on the map is Russian controlled territory. The blue on the map is claimed Ukrainian counteroffensive. So this is territory that Russia once held through their invasion or through their advance, and now Ukraine has pushed them back and they have claimed that territory. Similar to the blue, you have the yellow, which is claimed Russian control. So then we'll see that in a few different places on the map. And that is new territory that Russia is gaining. All right, that's new territory that Russia has gained, but it hasn't been verified yet. When it gets verified, it turns red. When it's only one source, so like when it's a Russian source only, it will be yellow. Good evening, everybody. Andrew, can we have a poll if Ukraine should have a peace deal with Russia on Donbass? Sure. So let's get into it here. On the 28th of February, we can do that poll. Do you believe, what is it? Ukraine should make a peace deal with Russia in Donbass. Do you believe Russia should make a peace deal with, do you believe Ukraine should make a peace deal with Russia in Donbass? Zelensky's already alluded to no. That's the president, but let's see what you guys think. Poll is popping up into the chat there. Now let's get into it. Thank you, Mick, for the wonderful poll idea. So here on here on June 28th, Ukrainian forces are likely conducting a fighting withdrawal that may include pulling back from Lysychansk and Luhansk Oblast in the near future, which probably aims to force the Russian offensive to culminate prematurely. The Luhansk People's Republic LNR ambassador to Russia, Royden Mershenik, said Russian mill bloggers claim that Ukrainian forces began a large-scale withdrawal from Lysychansk towards Seversk, Kramatorsk, and Sloviansk on June 28th. Although the study work cannot confirm independently Mershenik's claims of an ongoing withdrawal, Ukrainian forces continue the fighting withdrawal that began in Severodonetsk to Ukrainian strongholds around Seversk, Kramatorsk, and Sloviansk. The staunch but limited Ukrainian defense of Severodonetsk imposed high costs on the Russians despite new Russian tactics intended to limit Russian casualties. Kyiv could continue this approach until the Russian attack culminates or Ukrainian forces reach more defensible positions along a straighter line dotted with fortified cities and towns. And we'll go into that, and I'll zoom into the map and show you exactly what I'm talking about there. The pace and outcome of the next phase of the current campaign may depend in part on Russia's ability to recoup combat power from the forces that participated in the Battle of Severodonetsk. The remaining Russian forces in Severodonetsk will need to cross the Seversky Donetsk River into Lysychansk and Severodonetsk or its surrounding settlements to participate further in the Russian offensive. This movement could require some time since the Russians destroyed the three main bridges across the river near the city. Mershenik claimed that Russian forces have already crossed the Seversky Donetsk River from Kreminna and are building bridgeheads for further attacks on the Lysychansk further to the north. Study work cannot independently verify Mershenik's claims if they are true, and Russian forces threaten to complete the cauldron by pushing from the north and southwest of Lysychansk. Then the Ukrainian forces will likely abandon Lysychansk as well as conducting a fighting withdrawal to more defensible positions. Russian forces that have engaged in continuous offensive operations in Severodonetsk will also require some time to restore combat capabilities before participating in an assault on northern or northeastern Lysychansk. An unnamed Pentagon official stated that Russian forces continued to endure significant losses in fights for small territorial gains, and Russian groups that fought in Severodonetsk likely lost personnel and equipment. The locations and strength of the Russian troops that seized Severodonetsk remain unclear at this time. However, a notable acceleration of Russian attacks from the south of Lysychansk or from across the Seversky Donets River would likely indicate that Russians would have completed a redeployment of forces from Severodonetsk. Study War has not observed such indicators. Ukraine's conflict intelligence team reported that the Kremlin replaced Western Military District Commander Alexander Zuhurolev with the former commander of the 8th Combined Arms Army, Andrei Sikchinovoy. CIT added that WMD Chief of Staff Alexei Zavazyan was relieved. Study War cannot independently verify these reports and will continue to monitor the situation for further corroboration, so they haven't been able to verify the claims. It's just coming from one side. Russian forces continue to look for additional reserves to replenish personnel losses in Ukraine, but these reserves are unlikely to initiate rotations or provide combat-ready manpower. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov announced that he will form 4 new battalions, quote, with an impressive number of personnel, on June 26th. Kadyrov also announced that Chechen forces formed a West Akhmet battalion in the shortest possible time and claimed that the unit would deploy to a well-equipped base in Chechnya. Chechen forces will likely deploy the newly created battalion to the front line without sufficient training. Social media users also released footage of the Donetsk People's Republic rounding up, quote, volunteers in Donetsk City as a part of the recruitment campaign on June 28th. Wives of servicemen of the Russian 5th Guards Separate Tank Brigade issued a video plea for the immediate rotation of their husbands back home, noting that their husbands had left their permanent bases of deployment in January 2022 for exercises in Belarus. Video indicates that the Russian military command has expressed its intentions for unit rotations. Key takeaways from all that. Russian forces continued to launch assault operations south and southwest of Lysychansk. The Luhansk People's Republic officials claim that Ukrainian forces had begun to withdraw from the city, but the study of war cannot confirm these claims. Russian forces launched unsuccessful offensive operations north of Sloviansk and conducted spoiling attacks on settlements west of Izium, likely to disrupt Ukrainian counteroffensives. Russian forces failed to advance along the Kharkiv City-Belgrade highway and continued to undertake measures to hinder Ukrainian advances along the international border to Izium. Ukrainian forces continued to launch counteroffensives north of Kherson City and reportedly liberated 2 settlements, and we'll talk about that. Russian forces continue to transfer military equipment and personnel east of Melitopol. Russian occupation authorities are maintaining unsuccessful efforts to introduce ruble salary payments and set conditions to inflate electoral numbers in a future referendum. Unsuccessful efforts to introduce ruble, so unsuccessful Russification efforts going on in Melitopol and Kherson. So we're going to go into each individual front now. The main effort is Eastern Ukraine, which is comprised of 1 subordinate and 3 supporting efforts. The main effort is the encirclement of Ukrainian troops in the cauldron between Izium and Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. Supporting effort number 1 is Kharkiv City. Supporting effort number 2 is the southern axes. Then we'll talk about in Russian occupied areas. So before we get into it, let's mark on the map. We're going to be focused on the east. All right. Let's go. That's good. There we go. That's a good zoom. Let's start drawing. Again, blue on the map is going to be Ukrainian cities. Here's Kramatorsk. Ish. Sloviansk. That's a better circle. Bakhmut. They're getting close. Lysychansk is still in Ukrainian control. Like right here. Russians are getting close. Ukrainians are pulling out. So they're likely going to take Lysyansk in the coming week or so. This is probably going to be red here. Right? I'll zoom in after we go over all of it, and I'll show you guys what's going on here. You can see they're starting to encircle the entire area. This is getting filled in with red more and more. Here's Avdiivka down here. Barakov. Seversk. Kostyaniivka. Druzhivka. This is along the N20 highway. Thank you so much, Alita Edwards, for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. All right, now let's go into Russian cities that they hold. Popasna, Orlivka, Severodonetsk, Lyman, Izium, Irsk. Right, here's Luhansk. I'll highlight Luhansk. And then Donetsk is south. Here's Donetsk. Major cities that are talked about often. Rubinstein. That's talked about. So circled are highlighted. Again, the red circles are Russian occupied cities within Ukraine. The blue are the major Ukrainian cities that Ukraine still holds. We'll go purple for the highway. This is the E40 highway. Ooh. Stronger purple. Thank you, Dieter Heifert. Thank you so much for the $7.99 super chat. Thank you so much. So this is the E40 highway. Going to be referenced. Going to be referenced a few times. And then you got the T1 302 highway. Right into Lysyansk. T1 302. I don't need to do the T1 303 highway. Well, unless it's mentioned. Unless it's mentioned, I'll add on. So you have the E40. E40. And then you got the T1 302. Okay. What else do I know? Without reading the report from the day. So just from what we've read already, Ukrainians are trying to leave. The Ukrainians are going this way, blue arrows. They're leaving this region. Russians are pushing. Going along the highway here too. Here, there, Olivka. And then Lehman, this is the direction that they always move towards along the E40. Izium. And then Ukraine, blue. Oops. Those are long arrows, but they'll get your attention up here. That's Ukrainian counteroffensives. Oops. Okay. All right. That's all I know right now. And then the arrows are out. The arrows are direction of movement. All right, where their advances are. And the Ukrainians, they're retreating from Lysychansk from this region. Okay, and that's what I know right now from yesterday into today. There's the E40 highway, the T1302. Anything that I'm talking about, or if I'm referencing an area, I will circle it in the green, so I don't have to change anything. So, eastern Ukraine. Russian forces continue to conduct offensive operations southwest of Lysychansk to sever the T1302 Bakhmut-Lysychansk highway in several areas. That's here. Okay. Green circle. It's right. It's going to be right in here. Luhansk Oblast Administration Serhiy Haidai reported that Russian forces attempted to gain a foothold in the southern part of the Lysychansk oil refinery and pushed west of Vorohorivka, but did not reach the T1302 as of June 28th. Haidai also stated that Russian forces fought south and southwest of Lysychansk. Luhansk People's Republic LNR ambassador to Russia, Royden Mirshinik, claimed that LNR and Russian forces have advanced a third of the way into Lysychansk from the south and are fighting at the Shakhtar football stadium, which other troops crossed the Seversky Donetsk River around Kreminna. Study War is unable to independently verify these claims. The Ukrainian General Staff noted that Russian forces also conducted an unsuccessful attack west of Mykolivka and Yakovlivka, both along the T1302 highway. Russian Su-25 aircraft struck Ukrainian positions in Bilohora, just southeast of Lysychansk. So that stadium that they're talking about is here, green, in this region. Here's another region they were talking about. So all that they were talking about. Let's do this. Right in here. Is that bright enough? Too bright or green? There we go, even brighter. Make it bigger. There we go, that might be a little bit better. So what I was just talking about right there, all in here, in the green. Okay? Highlighted. And I'll zoom in a little more too, when we get into it. Russian forces continued to make limited territorial gains south of Bakhmut on June 28th. Russian forces continued to attack settlements along the E40 highway that runs from Sloviansk to Bakhmut, approximately 13 kilometers southeast of Bakhmut. The Ukrainian General Staff also added that Russian forces are attacking in the direction of Urgorishka power plant northwest of Svitodarsk. Ukrainian forces reportedly repelled Russian attacks in Pavlivka, just east of the Donetsk-Zaporizhia Oblast border. The city call one more time. So that's all here. Unsuccessful advances here. They're trying to get, there's Bakhmut, right? This is the city of Bakhmut in Ukraine, still under Ukrainian control. This is the advance that the Ukrainians are trying to cut off, or excuse me, the Russians are trying to cut off the Ukrainians completely from Bakhmut. They're trying to cut this highway off here. They're trying to cut them off. They're going back and forth here and cutting them off, and they're on each side of the highway further. They're trying to cut them off. They're trying to cut them off even closer to Bakhmut in their ground line of communication. That X isn't official. It's just what they're trying to do. They're trying to cut them off here. There's still a bit of a distance away from the T1302 if you look at the map. So this is where the Russians are. Here's the highway. T1302. Russian forces are continuing to launch spoiling attacks west of Izium to disrupt Ukrainian counteroffensives in the area. The Ukrainian General Staff reported that Russian forces attempted an unsuccessful assault on Zliman, approximately 26 kilometers northwest of Izium. That's up here. So you can kind of see it. I'll draw an arrow. Unsuccessful up here. before I forget. Oops. Solid blue line for defense. Okay. Unsuccessful. That's to the top left of your screen. The Ukrainian General Staff reported that Russian forces attempted an unsuccessful assault on Zaliman, approximately 26 kilometers northwest of Izium, on June 28th, having failed to advance in the area yesterday. Russian forces likely continued to attack Zaliman with insufficient combat power to make real gains in their effort to disrupt Ukrainian counteroffensives and thereby defend Russian ground lines of communication to Izium through Borova, approximately 41 kilometers east. Ukrainian forces continue to target Russian equipment in Vasal, just east of Zaliman. Russian forces are likely also continuing to conduct aerial reconnaissance and operate near Velka Komishovka, approximately 21 kilometers west of Izium, to disrupt Ukrainian advances from the west. That'd be over here. So similar to Ukraine defense, Russia's trying to stop them here. Right? You got the Ukrainian counteroffensives taking place here. Russia's trying to stop them here. So Ukraine held them to the northwest. They held the Russians from gaining any ground, and similar to the west of Izium, the Russians held the Ukrainian counteroffensives from taking back ground up here. Okay, so I'll leave that like that. Russian forces continued assaults north of Sloviansk but were unable to advance along the E40 highway along June 28th. Ukrainian Defense Ministry spokesperson Alexander Mochinek reported that Ukrainian forces repelled Russian offensive operations on Manivzivka, just west of the E40. Russian forces also continued to shell settlements around Lyman and Sloviansk itself. That's over here again, so nothing new over here. That small win they had yesterday, it's gone. They didn't gain any new territory. Nothing new. So that is it in the eastern region. Held defense. No new gains there, so it's a solid. Let's go. They held them here. No, nothing into Advika. That's about it. So let's go and make it simple. Win or loss for the day in each region for Russia. If it was a win, if they gained territory, if they lost. So in Severodonetsk, in this region, it would be a W. Continuing to make incremental gains. Okay, it's going to be a W here for Russia. In Bakhmut to Severodonetsk along that T1302L. L here, and didn't make any gains towards the highway, didn't cut off Ukrainian ground lines of communication. Here in Lysychansk, well, that's the W's for the whole Lysychansk and Severodonetsk region. The Russians captured all of Severodonetsk now, and they're working on Lysychansk. They're just south of it. They're trying to get all of it to secure all of the Luhansk Oblast. They're in the football stadium. They're getting close to the city. So this W here goes for this entire little pocket here. L down here for Russia. L. So one win here in the east today for the eastern front for Russia, and that'd be in this area. Okay, when I'm talking about W, there's their W. For the L, here's the L here. L here, they didn't do anything. L here, defense from Ukraine. L here, defense and Ukrainian counteroffensives are being successful, right? So they have a mess up. They have a mess going on here. There's nothing new here in Lyman. W's here, which is expected because the Russians have put all their battalion tactical groups back here. All of their multiple launch rocket system trucks, all of their shit is here. They moved it. They moved it from the southern axes and from the north and put it all here. So this makes sense. Okay, this is supposed to happen. Unfortunately. And then in this region, in Popasna, along the T1302, unsuccessful gains along there. So L, see L, L, and L. They haven't advanced into Avdiivka because they haven't been able to make any advances. There's a let's do a small W here though. Small W for Russia here. Small W for incremental gains. Okay, so loss in general in the whole area. Small W here for Russia. Loss today here, nothing. W as it continues. Loss in Lehman, nothing. Ukrainians held them off. And then loss in Izium as the Ukrainian counteroffensives are approaching from the west of Izium, and the Ukrainians are able to hold them off along that highway and to the north. Sorry if that's all chicken scratch. I'm trying to make it as simple as I can. All right. That's it for the east for the day. Erase. Now let's go up to Kharkiv, the Kharkiv Oblast. I do a 24-hour news cycle, so it's within the last 24 hours on my map. It's not like within the last week or like the war in general. It will change every single day. Russian forces launched unsuccessful offensive operations in the northwestern Kharkiv Oblast and continue to undertake measures to prevent Ukrainian forces from reaching the international border or striking positions southeast of Kharkiv city. Ukrainian Defense Ministry spokesperson Alexander Moschyanek reported that Ukrainian forces repelled a Russian attack on Dmitrivka along the Kharkiv city-Belgorod highway. The Ukrainian General Staff added that Russian Ka-52 helicopters struck in the area of Yavirsky, 65 kilometers southeast of Kharkiv city, and settlements in the vicinity conduct aerial reconnaissance. That is it. Unsuccessful offensive operations in the northwestern Kharkiv Oblast. So that'd be like this. Here, no, let me zoom out a little more. Okay, so again, red circles are Russian cities. This is literally in Russia, so it's not in Ukraine. But similar is going to be the Russian occupied cities in Ukraine. It's like the biggest city here, Volvochnatsk. Can't even say it right. Kharkiv is going blue. That's in Ukrainian control. Oh my goodness. Here's Kharkiv. That's going blue. And all that happened today here. This is all that happened today. Big wall, big solid line of defense. Nothing. That's it. That's all that went on today. And then artillery strikes within residential areas in this region, which have continued throughout the war since the invasion. The artillery shellings haven't stopped. L. Nothing. L for Russia today. It's all from the Russia perspective. I have the Russian offensive narrative, the Russian campaign offensive. So this is the area we're talking about. L today. Nothing. Ukrainians are holding them off from advancing any further. Similar to that, the Ukrainians don't have any new successes for their counteroffensives in the region. This is all that's happened today. L for Russia. Nothing. Okay, now we're going to go to the southern axes in Ukraine, which includes Mykolaiv, Kherson, Melitopol, Zaporizhia Oblast, Mariupol. There we go. That should be good right there. I can include Mariupol on there now. Let's start circling. There's Mariupol. Melitopol. Kherson. Vasilivka, that's mentioned a few times. Zaporizhia, that's in Ukrainian control. Here's Mykolaiv, that's in Ukrainian control. Let's do their advance. Ukrainians having a strong counterattack in the southern axes. Using the highway. Little arrow because they're coming right off the highway. Okay. Let's get the, and then let's do the highway. Ukrainians are still close. They're right outside of Kherson. That's the road. The purple is the road from Kherson into Mykolaiv. Okay. Pull this up. Hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. I'm just in the zone. I am in the zone here. All right. Activity. No, we're not there yet. So, oh, we're not there yet. Come on now. There we go. Ukrainian forces continued to launch counteroffensive operations north of Kherson City on June 28th. Ukrainian military journalist Andrei Tusupolenko reported that Ukrainian forces liberated Zelenyi High and Burivanok, approximately 25 kilometers north of Kherson City, on the Mykolaiv-Kherson Oblast border. An unnamed Pentagon official had previously reported that Ukrainian forces liberated a small village north and northwest of Kherson City over the weekend. Two villages, I apologize. Small villages, two of them. But neither Ukrainian nor U.S. officials had named these settlements as of June 28th. So there was rumblings over the weekend, and as of today, there still hasn't been like an official... There's been a retaking of the villages. There hasn't been an official source that have came out and said that. The Ukrainian Southern Operational Command stated that Russian forces unsuccessfully attempted to regain previously lost positions in Potomarinki, Polya Tuzinsky, and Luparevi in the northwestern Kherson Oblast. Russian forces continue to shell and launch airstrikes along the Mykolaiv-Kherson and Kherson-Dnipro-Tversk Oblast borders to disrupt Ukrainian counteroffensives. Ukrainian Southern Operational Command spokesperson Natalia Gomyanok noted that Ukrainian forces also struck 3 Russian Pantsir systems in a continuing effort to destroy Russian defenses on the Snake Island off the Romanian coast. Russian forces continue to transfer equipment and personnel east of Melitopol on June 28th. Russian forces, Zaporizhia Oblast Military Administration head Alexander Starku reported that Russian forces are transporting military equipment to and from Melitopol to unspecified settlements in the east. So here is that route. Here's Melitopol. Here's the route they're taking, transporting equipment to the east. Goes right on in. Oops, ignore that. Why? There we go. That's the route that they're taking these supplies from Melitopol into Russia. Starstock added that Russian forces moved a battalion tactical group to Berdyansk and Prometorsk area, but it's unclear if the battalion tactical group will continue further east or remain in that area. Russian forces may be reallocating more military personnel to suppress rising partisan activity in cities like Berdyansk. Oh, so there's partisan activity, and let's highlight that. I forgot to. Here's Berdyansk. Again, the circles are cities. Try to, because they're hard to see. So here's Berdyansk, Melitopol, Mariupol, Vaslivka, and Kherson. These are all Ukrainian cities that now Russia occupies. So there's some resistance going on there. They're fighting the authority, similar to Kherson and Melitopol. Russian forces are also likely setting conditions to hold the E58 highway stretching from Rostov-on-Don to Kherson City, even if Ukrainian counteroffensives push the Russian line back north. Interesting. Here's the E58 highway. Highways are reflected in purple, just so you guys can see them. It goes right from Kherson to Melitopol. Oops, come on. And that is E58. Okay, when you hear the E58 highway, that goes from Kherson to Melitopol. This is the routes. This is the Russian ground lines of communication. GLOC. Block. Ground line of communication. Supply line, aka. Is what the Russians are using down here in the southern axes. This is saying, again, Russian forces are likely setting conditions to hold that E58 highway, stretching from the Rostov-on-Don to Kherson City, even if Ukrainian counteroffensives push the Russians' line back north. So now we're going to talk about activities in Russian-occupied areas in general. So that concludes today's happenings in the southern axes. Nothing really new. So up here, since it's it would be technically Russia on defense here, which is such a weird thing to say, being they're in Ukraine. But here is no, I got that wrong. W up here in blue for Ukraine, because they're pushing into Russian territory here. They haven't gained it, or Ukraine hasn't gained any new territory in their counteroffensives down here, so it's an L. So it's a little inverse over here than it is in the east, right? So just two areas of approach. And then nothing new over here from Ukraine, so that's an L2. Only two areas of approach. Big W's for Ukraine and their counteroffensives. Oops. To the northeast of Kherson. So W in this region. L Ukraine here just for the day. It doesn't mean L in general. It doesn't mean they're taking losses. It just means day to day. If they either won the area, if they either won in the area that they're trying to win in terms of retaking territory or whatever, or if they didn't. And then I guess you can. This is a small W. No, small. It'd be a small L for Russia here. In for their push for small L. In this region for Russia today, in the southern axes. Small L here. Okay. Big W for Ukraine continuing with their counteroffensives and retaking villages and territory. Haven't gained anything new along this counteroffensive here, which they're 10 to 15 kilometers out of Kherson. Nothing new there, nothing new to report. And then small L here, Russian forces have not gained any more territory, and they haven't pushed into Ukraine any further. That'd be like a line here too. Ukraine held them off. Russia. I'm just making it messy now, but you get it. All right. So now we'll talk about activities in occupied areas in general in Ukraine. So this is just what's going on in the individual, excuse me, this is what's just going on in general for the cities that Russia has occupied and just the well-being of the cities. Russian occupation authorities continued to introduce bureaucratic measures to install societal control over occupied territories on June 28th, but faced challenges due to Ukrainian resistance. The Ukrainian Resistance Center reported that Russian Occupation Administration is attempting to carry out a medical reform in Kherson Oblast to follow the Russian healthcare model. The Ukrainian healthcare workers largely refused to cooperate with Russian occupation authorities, disrupting Russian plans to introduce ruble salaries in the Kherson Oblast. The Ukrainian Southern Operational Command also noted that Russian forces are opening a network of offices in southern Ukraine, offering Russian passports, likely to inflate electorate numbers before a referendum. They're gonna try to do the same exact thing in Kherson that they did in Crimea. Crimea was just their test run and it worked. And now they're gonna try to do the exact same thing in Kherson, Melitopol, Mariupol, Donetsk, and Luhansk. All right, they're gonna try to do the same exact thing. The only difference now is that in Crimea they didn't face any fighting. They just went in and took it. Now in Kherson they're having partisan warfare and the civilians aren't going for it. In Kherson, the Ukrainians are right on the outskirts of the cities and they're pushing in the northeast as well. So the Ukrainians aren't going down without a fight for these locations. Forced Russification. One more time for the key takeaways for the day before we get into our video clip section of the live stream. Russian forces continue to launch assault operations south and southwest of Lysychansk. This is on today, June 28th. The Luhansk People's Republic officials claim that Ukrainian forces had begun to withdraw from the city, but the study of war cannot confirm these claims. Russian forces launched unsuccessful offensive operations north of Sloviansk and conducted spoiling attacks on settlements west of Izium, likely to disrupt Ukrainian counteroffensives. Russian forces failed to advance along the Kharkiv city-Belgorod highway and continued to undertake measures to hinder Ukrainian advances towards the international border, or Izium. Ukrainian forces continued to launch counteroffensives north of Kherson City and reportedly liberated 2 settlements. Russian forces continued to transfer military equipment and personnel east of Melitopol. Russian occupation authorities are maintaining unsuccessful efforts to introduce ruble salary payments and set conditions to inflate electoral numbers in a future referendum. And that is the rundown of the map and the changes for the day. Thank you, Barry, for subscribing, and thank you, Storm Alabama, for subscribing to the channel. You guys are amazing that are showing all of the support going forward. Thank you guys all. So let's get the latest from John Sweeney. This was 17 hours ago. This was from Kremenchuk. Some of the corn from that mall that was bombed and civilians. Let's do a viewer check-in. Comment where you're tuned in from if you haven't done so. What city, what state, where in the world you guys are watching from. This is an update from John Sweeney from his Kyiv diary, day 125. Kremenchuk, enough already. John Sweeney, independent journalist, used to work for the BBC, now does his own journalism. The link to his Twitter page is in the description of our videos. This is John Sweeney.
Kyiv Diary Day 125 of Vladimir Putin's war. Kremenchuk. This is the shopping mall that was hit by the Russian missile. The air raid siren sounded, 1,000 people were in it. A lot of them left, thank God. 18 people have been found dead, another 40 or so are missing, presumed dead. The Russian missile was an X-22. The rocket system was first launched in 1962. Yes, that's right, it's 60 years old. The probable target wasn't here because this is a catastrophe for the Kremlin. The probable target was either the oil refinery, which is close by, 10 miles away, or the bridge, which is maybe a mile away. Whatever. This is a war crime. To send a hopelessly inaccurate 60-year-old rocket system against a city of 200,000 people is a war crime. So, what are we going to do about this? Eh? Are we going to let this continue? Are we going to help the Ukrainians finish the job? The problem I've got is that I've seen this happen again and again and again, and at least some of this stuff, the smell of destroyed life, not
Thank you, Scooter. Thank you so much for the $10.
just burnt homes, but also there is some smell of destroyed human life here as well. Reminds me of the first time I saw this stuff, which is in 2000 in Chechnya, 22 years ago. Vladimir Putin is a monster, and he's a war crime, and we've got to stop him, and we've got to help our Ukrainian friends stop him. For God's sake, enough already.
I draw the line when you see, like, I mean, we're covering the war, right? And if you are to the point where you're just like, this isn't a war crime, when a shopping mall by civilians were struck and civilians were killed, which we've been covering since the beginning, and we've been showing the Russian war crimes, and if you're coping to the point where you're just going to be like, no, that's not a war crime, I don't want you in my chat, and I don't want you around my community. I don't care if you believe... Listen, you're here to see what's going on in the war, and you can say whatever you want, but when you're going to blatantly deny war crimes taking place, that's going to create an environment I don't want.
Let this continue
on my channel. That's ridiculous. You can have your own feelings and whatever the hell, even though they're wrong, in my opinion, for how the war started and what the solutions are. However, if you aren't able to... If you're gonna troll on war crimes, you're done. So here's more of the shopping mall that was destroyed. Coke bottle. John Sweeney just showing some of the rubble there. Kremachuk, day 125, air raid sirens. I have a simple message for Vladimir Putin from John Sweeney.
So the air raid siren has just gone, and obviously because the Russian missiles smashed this place, it's a possibility that they could do it again. This is Kremenchuk. In the 21st century, it's a sleepy little place surrounded by beautiful countryside. You can imagine you're in the Shire. And what's happening now is a city of 200,000 people who lost probably 60 people yesterday are now in fear, listening to Vladimir Putin's lullaby once more. And I'm going because the firemen are going. Vladimir Putin, dude, fuck off.
So that's coming from the cleanup at the Kremachuk Mall from John Sweeney. All right. Russia's invite to G20 must turn, just like the mall at Kremachuk, to ashes. That's John Sweeney and his updates. Here is more of the video showing the mall getting destroyed from yesterday that came out today. Video shows Russian missile attack on Ukrainian mall. Pretty significant attack on civilian infrastructure. Pretty damn significant attack. And that is the video. And there's some of the aftermath John Sweeney is showing on his account. Let's get into the Ukraine war report. We covered the mall bombing yesterday, and so this was just, you got a couple updates out there. Nothing beyond that today. So here's some of the combat footage and some of the combat happenings that are taking place within Ukraine. Starting with the last video from last night from Rob Lee, video of a soldier with Ukraine's 95th Air Assault Brigade targeting a Russian helicopter, reportedly a Ka-52, and he brought his man pads with him. You can see the helicopter. You'll see a speck in the air. So this dark speck here is the helicopter. And that man pads he just shot, you'll see it. Gonna hit it.
Yes!
That was a helicopter. It was struck right there.
Попав! Попав же ж?
Попав, але вона йде на зниження.
And it goes down into the tree line.
Попав, зараз подивимося, буде дим.
So that was, again, a man pads. Ukraine brought their man pads that day. The aftermath of a Ukrainian strike on a Russian position in Pavlovask in the Luhansk Oblast. LNR officials say it was caused by a HIMARS strike launched from Bakhmut. Ukrainian HIMARS.
Заебись.
Вон, сбили, видишь?
Угу.
Continuing on, you got here's the HIMARS launchers that Ukraine is using. Here's more from the KH-22 missile strike on the shopping mall in Kremenchuk yesterday. Video perspective from a nearby park. So this is more video coming out from the strike on the mall from yesterday. Showing some of the how the strike and its aftershock wow. You just jumped right in the water. The kid's out of there. Oh my God. That's all like debris landing into the water. So you can hear it coming. That's why you see them moving before it hits. You can hear it's a whistle. When a cruise missile strike is when a cruise missile is heading on its way to a city, you hear a loud whistling noise. Supersonic. Yep. So that's in the park. It appears 2 or more missile strikes are almost 500 meters apart. One struck the mall and the other appears to hit the factory by the park, marked in the yellow. Park is in the yellow. That's how close it was. Here's footage reportedly from the second missile strike that hit the Kremadash factory in Kremenchuk. So there were 2 strikes in Kremenchuk, one at the shopping mall and one at this factory. You can see the crater, which is in the front of the cameraman. Very terrifying. Video from Ukraine's Kraken unit of D-30 artillery strike on reported Russian headquarters in a house. I think we did see this one yesterday, but I'm going to play it again. So this is a Russian headquarters, Ukraine strike. Ukraine Special Forces strike upon it. Copyright, Facebook. I don't think they're running any comms out of that headquarters anymore. Good night. Sheesh. Target destroyed. That was that was the headquarters, but that's the Russian headquarters house. Taken out. B-30 artillery strike. Video of Eretsvika R-18 UAV dropping munitions on a Russian BMP. Got a Russian BMP blowing up on screen. Russian vehicle. Yeah, it was one hit. Ukraine needs more. They need more heavy weapons, more artillery. That new German system that they got, I'm hoping Germany sends more. Germany just upped their military, not just, but at the start of the invasion, they upped their spending. Germany raised their military budget. Oh, it was at night. Here's the nighttime shot. Pitch dark everywhere, except for that one spot. And there's the fire. So again, that's from Eretsvika R-18 UAV dropping munitions on a Russian BMP. Here's video from Ukraine's 59th Motorized Brigade, reportedly showing artillery strikes on a Russian mortar position. If you guys could, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're following us on Mercado Media. Thank you guys so much for supporting independent media. Ukraine's 59th Motorized Brigade showing artillery strikes on a Russian mortar position. You can tell that's Ukrainians because they have the yellow bands on their helmets. Ukrainians wear yellow, blue, and green. Thank you, Royal Kush 123 for the $3.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. So again, that's Ukraine's 59th Motorized striking Russian mortar positions. Here's a Ukrainian Mi-24 helicopter from 8 hours ago. Ukrainian Mi-24 helicopter. You can see the Ukrainian flag on there. Low flying. Right in the fields. That concludes Rob's video updates from the day. So we got to go to the Ukraine War Video Report now. And early, not too many updates coming out from the day today. From yesterday to today. Again, yesterday being the biggest news was the Kremenchuk airport. Caught on camera, Russian missiles hit the shopping center in Kremenchuk. This is the angle that we had seen on Twitter. I took out a couple of the persistent trolls earlier that were where they're getting to the point where they know, I know what they're doing, but when they're gonna call war crimes not war crimes at this point, then they're just being pains and they're just gonna being toxic to the chat. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation officially announced that in Kremenchuk they hit the hangars with weapons and ammunition received from the US and European countries. It just accidentally touched the nearby mall and did not function. It just accidentally touched the mall. Russia they've already been denying it since it happened. Some aerial view of the mall. Here is Ukrainian soldiers having a bit of fun.
По позиціям противника одиночним вогонь заряджай. Постріл!
It looks so childish, but I can remember at the top of my head at least 10 instances right now of doing something similar. Even like being in the army.
Одиночним вогонь заряджай. Постріл!
You gotta find ways to entertain yourself. Example, so like in the in the army we have a big ass chain, the Bertha chain, right? It's like a big toe chain. It's heavy as hell, and we did races and punishment. You had punishment they used it for punishment too, but we drag the chains and race down and back with the chains in the dirt because it was all dirt motor pools in the Middle East. We didn't have a nice pad. We had a sand in our dirt in our motor pool, which was great when the sandstorms came. But you find random things like that to entertain yourself, especially in the military. So that happens more often than that's not limited to just this happening. It happens in all militaries. Ukrainian artillery destroys orcs' positions. When you had to drag the Bertha chain if you were getting punished. I had to do that once. Down and back. Oh man, I was never so tired. Ukrainian helicopter cockpit. Okay, that's a Ukrainian helicopter cockpit. Here's Ukrainian soldiers sitting on a helicopter ramp door from 13 hours ago. So that's apparently Ukrainian on a cockpit door with very clean lands, or with planes that don't have any craters in them. That just looks weird to me. Ukrainian soldiers, no. AC/DC got my stream banned last time. Legion, Freedom, Russia in action. We are at the border of the Russian Federation. Video interrupted by artillery shell. Intense. And this is the Russian Legion fighting on Ukraine's behalf.
Мы практически уже вышли.
Мы на границе с Россией, ожидайте. Путин, мы идем за твоей головой, блядь.
Воздух! Воздух! Вперед! Пошли! Вперед! 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 В две шеренги вперед! Осталось немного!
Why are you gonna...
Вперед! Вперед!
The dog's like me too.
И отступают, избегают прямого контакта. Работает активно артиллерия. Вперед, парни! Левый фланг держите, они где-то там должны быть. На повороте фланги займите. Первая двойка, вперед, пошли!
They're sitting still too long.
Заняли позицию. Разошлись. Вперед! Вперед, похуй! Подойдем ближе, расхуярим минометчиков! За свободу России! Мы практически уже на границе с Россией. Скоро будем дома. Всем привет! Слава Украине! Слава России! Без преступного режима Путина!
Alright, so that's the Legion Freedom Russia in action. They are looting toilet bowls and women's underwear, says a Ukrainian soldier in a dismissive assessment of Russian forces. Soldiers from the Ukrainian 3rd Separate Tank Brigade spoke to RFE-RL's Ukrainian service about their experience in battle in Rozhodolny, eastern Ukraine. Interesting. Soldiers from Ukraine's 3rd Separate Tank Brigade say they repelled a Russian attack. The battle reportedly happened in an undisclosed location in eastern Ukraine, so credit to Radio Free Europe for this piece.
Побачив, що ціла колона йде ззаді нас, 120-125 метрів було. Дав команду наводчику, противник ззаду. Наводчик з першим вистрілом гармати розбив БМП-3, другим вистрілом гармати поцілили в теж БМП-3, яке вже ховалося кумулятивним снарядом цей. Там буквально ніхто не залишився живий з цих екіпажів. Далі в нас вийшла проблема трошки, заклинула пушка. Автомат зараження ми ще раз зарядили вручну. Теж по БМП-3 попали в опорний каток, він теж, це БМП-3 теж вийшло з ладу.
Зіграли на випередження і коли нанесли удар осколочно-фугасним пострілом, то ми йому вибили систему. Він не міг одразу перезапустити противник систему. Тому невдовзі, там, хвилина часу, механік покинув люк, виліз зі свого люку і пішов до нас здаватися. Побіг з піднятими руками в сторону танка. Ми, може, одразу не зрозуміли, механік наш тоді на той період каже, давимо москаля, кричить. Але вчасно командир танку скреч стій, каже, не їдь, каже, в полон нам теж треба люди.
Значить, що сказати про росіян? Неважливо, яких в них танки. Я особовому складу завжди кажу, Хай в них будуть самі хороші танки, але важливо, хто в цих танках сидить і чи є мотивація в особового складу.
Facts. So true. They're T-90 tanks, which are like Panzers, like Panzer tanks. Useless. Like they think those tanks are just, if they had the right crew in them, if they had a highly trained or fully trained Panzer crew in Russia's T-90 tanks, dude, that would have changed everything. Even their T-80s, nothing. Their tank crews are just picked up off the street and they're thrown into a tank and here you go. Figure it out.
Російської Федерації, орків так званих. От якщо вони не мотивовані, вони не хочуть воювати, то не важливо.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a T-90 or a T-72, which this is a T-72.
Хай не буде Т-90, Т-72 БЗ-3 там і все на світі саме новітнє. Якщо сидить в машині людина, яка не вміє користуватися, яка або погано засвоїла користування танки, а судячи по опиту, що вони тягають унітази і крадуть жіночу натільну білизну, то хочу сказати, професіоналів серед них не зовсім багато, м'яко кажучи. А професіоналізм наших танкістів вже доведений на всій лінії фронту і неодноразово. Сама роль танків – це кулак, ударний кулак контрнаступів. Але, звісно, без підтримки артилерії контрнаступ неможливий. Хотілося б в першу чергу збільшити кількість артилерії по нашій лінії фронту, але ми від цього дуже залежимо на сьогоднішній день. Боєприпаси вчасно і артилерія. Другорядне стоять танки і піхота. Піхота без танків нікуди, а танки без піхоти також нікуди.
Russians are looting toilet bowls and women's underwear. That's the assessment from Ukrainian tank crew. That's what the Russians have accomplished. Looting toilet bowls and women's underwear. Video from Denis Propachenko's wife posted on his birthday. Oh, just a compilation, okay. Here's meeting of the UN Security Council. We need to act immediately and do everything to make Russia stop the killings of children, people, everyone. It must be brought to justice for terrorism, otherwise it could be terrorist activity to other European countries, Asia, and Baltic states.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine.
Дуже дякую. Шановні пані та панове, передусім хочу подякувати албанському головуванню в Раді безпеки ООН.
That's 13 minutes. Is there like a... We don't have time to listen to the whole thing. Oh, I guess we do. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to this if I need to. So, how do I... Can I bookmark this? Let's come back. Oh, save. There we go. Leave it to Tulsi... Jesus. Tulsi Gabbard on Tucker Carlson arguing Ukraine should surrender is being featured on Russian state TV. Oh my god, of course it is, dude. Of course. Leave it to Tulsi Gabbard again to voice pro-Kremlin talking points on Tucker Carlson's show, advocating for Zelensky to accept Russia's conditions. Their only condition is Ukraine's total capitulation. As always, Russia State TV is quick to showcase the clip. They love Tucker Carlson in Russia. They love Fox News and Tucker Carlson.
Палата представителей США Tulsi Gabbard советует Зеленскому сесть за стол переговоров и...
What's going on here?
Советует Зеленскому сесть за стол переговоров и согласиться на условия российской стороны, иначе армия России добьется еще больших успехов и позиция Киева станет только слабее.
Kiev's position will only get weaker. One more time. Oops. Is there more from that? What's the picture on the floor today? So Julia does all of the Russia reports on the videos coming out of Russia, so we can get what they're saying. There's only a 13-second clip.
Tulsi Gabbard советует Зеленскому сесть за стол переговоров и согласиться на условия российской стороны, иначе армия России добьется еще больших успехов и позиция Киева станет только слабее.
So that's how they start their news. Intense. Look at that. Tucker and Tulsi featured right in the back. Tucker and Tulsi. Ukrainian sense of humor is the... Okay, hold on. This video's in like... When did this video take place? It's hard to tell. I don't even know if those are... I don't even see any identifying markers. There isn't any... They're not even wearing any markers, so I don't even know where this is from. Ukrainian soldiers sitting in trees with a man pads waiting for Russian aircraft.
Дивіться прикол. Дерево. Стінгер. Дерево. Стріла. Чекаємо піде.
I'm guessing like a lot of videos are going to be like from early in the war when people weren't really paying attention. But it's easy now because if they're frontline troops, they're going to be wearing the bands now. White bands, yellow bands. Excuse me. If they're fighting for Russia, they will be wearing a white band or a red band. If they're fighting for Ukraine now at this point, since the invasion, they'll be wearing yellow, blue, or green. Ukrainian special forces taking some food to civilians in Severodonetsk. This has to be a little bit of an older video because now the Russians have full control over Severodonetsk.
Їжу і водичку несемо у бомбосховище міста Сєвєродонецьк.
So bringing some supplies to those in need. Ukrainian multiple launch rocket system. Fire! Seen that video so many times.
Якщо коротко, то в Лисичанську.
Here's from President Zelensky. Here we go. This would probably be quicker than the whole UN conference. Zelensky, as of this evening, the total number of Russian missiles that have hit our cities is already at 2811. We already have the evidence that the Russian troops are doing against our people. One such piece of evidence is in the video, 28 June. So again, this is President Zelensky, President of Ukraine.
Українці, українки, всі наші захисники і захисниці. Щойно я взяв участь у спеціальному засіданні Ради безпеки ООН, яке було скликано на прохання України. Скликано Албанією, ця держава головує в Радбезі. Ми задіяли усі міжнародні важелі, щоб притягнути Росію до відповідальності за державний тероризм. За все зроблено російською армією проти українців в Кременчуці, в Очакові, в Лисичанську, в Харкові, в Дніпрі, в багатьох інших містах нашої держави. Станом на цей вечір загальна кількість російських ракет, які ударили по наших містах, вже 2811. А скільки ще авіабомб, скільки артилерійських снарядів. Рада безпеки ООН сьогодні, стоячи, вшанувала пам'ять усіх українців, вбитих російською армією на нашій землі. Члени російської делегації озирнулись на усіх присутніх в залі Радбезу і теж вирішили встати, просто щоб не виглядати вбивцями відверто. Але всі знають, що це саме російський терор, саме російська держава вбиває ні в чому невинних людей на цій війні, розв'язаній проти українського народу. Я закликав ООН скористатись вже наявними механізмами статуту ООН, щоб припинити російські маніпуляції структурами організації і щоб створити спеціальний трибунал для розслідування дій російських окупантів на українській землі. Правоохоронні органи і розвідка України роблять все, щоб встановити усіх російських військових, які відповідальні за терор проти наших міст. Прізвища, обличчя і вся інформація про кожного з цих терористів будуть відомі світу. Ніхто з них не зможе уникнути відповідальності і персональних санкцій для цих осіб буде недостатньо. Вирок суду і тюрма. Ось це мінімум, на який вони заслуговують. І окремо хочу сказати про відповідальність тих російських пропагандистів, які брешуть про цей терор, які намагаються виправдати дії російської армії. Кожен із вас також буде покараний. Ми маємо всі докази того, що роблять російські військові проти наших людей. Сьогодні я хочу завершити це звернення одним з таких доказів, щоб ніхто не смів обманювати щодо ракетного удару по торговельному центру в Кременчуці. Російська ракета ударила саме по цьому об'єкту. Ціле спрямовано. Очевидно, що такий був наказ. Очевидно, що такі координати отримали російські вбивці для цієї ракети. Вони хотіли убити якнайбільше людей в мирному місті, в звичайному торговельному центрі. Ось як це було в Кременчуці.
And then he shows the video from Kremenchuk.
І за цей акт державного тероризму, як і за всі інші, Росія буде відповідати на полі бою в Україні посиленням санкцій і обов'язково в трибуналі. Я вдячний всім, хто захищає Україну. Підписав сьогодні новий указ про нагородження наших героїв. Ще 314 учасників бойових дій відзначені державними нагородами. Вічна слава нашим захисникам і захисницям. Слава Україні!
All right, so that's a president from Zelensky wanting a tribunal to look into the war crimes being committed by Russia in Ukraine. So they go to destroy the occupiers from 12 hours ago. They being the Ukrainian military going to destroy the Russian military. That was a big strike on the Kremenchuk Mall and the factory next to it. Ukrainian soldiers under heavy shelling.
Сюда. Ай, блядь. Все нормально. Фиксик. Фикс. Живой? Ого. Близко. О,
That was close. You can hear how relieved he is.
короче.
That was very close.
Ай, блядь. Ай, блядь. Передайте, 2 миномета работают по сволочам.
This is just sent to our Discord server at 9 o'clock. Update from the 25th. A Ukraine war, 80% of troops killed or injured in elite military unit, says commander. So a commander of an elite unit of Ukrainian Marines told Skies John Sparks the majority of his best trained troops have been injured or killed.
These men form the elite on the Ukrainian side, members of the Marine Corps, south of the city of Severodonetsk. They're always armed, always ready, rifles kept within reach, and they told us they don't have the time to be afraid.
What goes through your mind when you get the command? Excitement? Fear?
Адреналин. Чувство адреналина таке. Що я ще скажу? І все.
The Russians have focused their firepower in the east as they attempt to batter their way into the Donbass. Territory is seized by destroying it first. Thousands have been caught in the crossfire. The Ukrainians are mounting a determined defense, but it comes at a price. This is Marine Company Commander Alexander, waiting for the order to head to the front.
What's it like when you are sitting here in this village waiting?
Ну, ми рідко просто так сидимо. Як правило, ми стараємося займатися, тому що багато під час ведення активних бойових дій з'являється багато поранених, є загиблі. Їх міняють на нових людей. Нові люди менш підготовлені, ніж люди, які були з нами ізначально. Тому приходиться постійно проводити заняття.
Here's part of the training. His unit ready for battle in 10 minutes or less. But they might not make it back.
How many men have you lost since the war began?
У мене підрозділ був на 100% комплектований військовослужбовцями контрактної служби. Тобто це люди, які служать вже не перший контракт. Тобто 80% з них зараз є або вже не боєздатними через важкі поранення, або
Only about 20% of his unit left.
You can't sustain those sort of losses.
indefinitely, can you?
Ну, я навіть не знаю, як відповісти на це питання. Важко.
He says the Russians have also suffered, and he took us to a field where his forces repulsed an enemy column back in April. We saw shards of metal and a pair of boots, and shallow graves where Russian soldiers have been buried.
Certainly dead bodies here. You can smell them.
Analysts make estimates about the number of dead, but the reality lies in fields like these.
How many bodies do you think are lying around in these fields?
Навіть приблизно сказати не можу. В цій частині там близько 40 чоловік. А по тій стороні переправи, там де було розбито артилерію і підірвалось на мінах, ну там я не знаю, ну там порядка 150-200 чоловік, напевно.
The fight for life is waged in here, the back of an ad hoc ambulance. Combat medics like Irina Tsibuk deal with broken bodies and gaping wounds. And after 4 months of fighting, she's tired.
I'm really exhausted, and I just feel I need to sleep like for a few weeks. Just sleep, watching Netflix, eating like food from fast food delivery, and hug my mom.
She says many of the country's best soldiers have already been lost. She now treats their less experienced replacements.
I see the guys that come here, they are not professional, they don't know what to do, and they are really very scared, so that's why I'm carrying.
That worries you, does it? Yeah.
The invasion has done damage that will last for generations. But these battlefield medics say they all support the war. What choice do we have if we choose to be Ukrainian?
Literally, if they give up, Russia takes their country. We've been watching more and more videos from the frontline medics in Ukraine and their efforts there. And if they give up, if they lose hope, then Russia takes their country. Ukrainian Special Forces in Severodonetsk. So, fighting in Severodonetsk. Chechen fighting for Ukraine.
Allahu Akbar. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah.
So, Chechen fighter on Ukrainian side. We saw some of these videos. Here is the city of Kostyana-Navivka is located in the eastern Ukraine near the city of Donetsk. The city's boiler room and school number 15 were destroyed by missiles of the Russian armed forces. School number 15. Smash the like button if you guys have not done so on the video on YouTube, if you could. And Facebook React. Thank you so much for choosing Mercado Media as your source for the war. Look at the crater. Just lots of damage. When is it going to end? Quiet video showing some of the schoolwork. Look at that. There's some of somebody's notebook. right, let's continue on here. Let's go to some of the newest videos, if there is any. We've gone through a lot of the clips for the day. It wasn't just updates from the Kremenchuk Mall today. Ukrainian forces destroy a Russian mortar unit together with its ammunition using artillery fired by Ukraine's 59th Motorized Brigade. Alright, and they hit it. We saw that video a little earlier. Ukraine's 27th, 40th, and 92nd Brigades coordinate to destroy Russian material plus equipment in the Kharkiv Oblast. This is in the northeast, north of Izium.
Там взрывается, видишь? Опа.
Showing some of the UAV footage. I'm playing The Quarry tonight too, y'all, on YouTube on our gaming channel. Just letting you guys know if I've been looking for it. Playing a full replay of the game. We played it once, and a lot of our characters died, like all of them except for 3. So I'm going to be streaming this game again, The Quarry, right after this stream is over with on YouTube, and all the characters are going to live now. I'm going to make sure they're all going to live, and we're going to see a better ending than we got. All right. So that'll be after the stream is complete. If you're interested, head over to Snack Squad TV on YouTube, or just hang out in the chat after the stream ends, and you'll be teleported right into that stream. Ukrainian fighter narrowly escapes grenade dropped from a Russian drone. Yeah, our choice is a lot of the characters didn't make it. Like all of them except for 3 died. Alright, so that was a Ukrainian fighter narrowly escapes a grenade in the trench. You can see the Ukrainian soldier here quickly gets into the cover for the mortar round drops. That's looking like it for the day, y'all. We've seen all these clips. I don't go and replay stuff. Not too many new clips coming out today, and I already did the rundown of the map. If you missed the first half of the stream after this stream posts, just rewatch the beginning, and I do a full map breakdown of the war. So it's looking like we're gonna end 15 minutes or so early tonight. Just I don't repeat myself much, but if you want more content from me, I'll be live on Snack Squad TV YouTube channel immediately. Well, not immediately. I'm going to go have a safety meeting, and then I'll be live on the Snack Squad TV channel streaming The Quarry, so we can actually play a while tonight. So key takeaways from the day: June 28th, 2022. Russian forces continue to launch assault operations south and southwest of Lysychansk. The Luhansk People's Republic officials claim that Ukrainian forces had begun to withdraw from the city, but the study of war cannot confirm these claims. Russian forces launched unsuccessful offensive operations north of Sloviansk and conducted spoiling attacks on settlement west of Izium, likely to disrupt Ukrainian counteroffensives. Russian forces failed to advance along the Kharkiv City-Belgrade highway and continued to undertake measures to hinder Ukrainian advances towards the international border of Izium. Ukrainian forces continued to launch counteroffensives north of Kherson City and reportedly liberated 2 settlements. Russian forces continue to transfer military equipment and personnel east of Melitopol. The Russian occupation authorities are maintaining unsuccessful efforts to reintroduce the ruble salary payments and set conditions to inflate electoral numbers in a future referendum. And that is the latest for the day here on June 28th, 2022. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and again choosing an independent media source, Mercado Media, as your source for the war in Ukraine and current events around the world, especially in the United States. Again, I'll be live on our gaming channel if you're interested in video game streams, softball streams, blogs, or vlogging, snacks, food, hangouts, like other content other than polarizing current events that is going on. That's on Snack Squad TV. Hang out in the chat after this. I'm replaying The Quarry all in one stream. I'm not going to make it multiple nights, just replaying it once because I already beat it once and all of our characters died. But I'm streaming that. I'm going to have a safety meeting and then I'll be live with that on Snack Squad TV. Thank you guys again. Shout out to all of our followers on Facebook. Head over to YouTube. Come over to YouTube, Facebook. I'm trying to bring many of you guys as possible on over here and come hang out with our community. We had nearly over 500 people watched all night on YouTube. If you're wondering where all the people are, that's who I'm talking to. And also thank you to everybody that's a member of the YouTube channel. Thank you to everybody that sent stars, super chats, super stickers. Thank you to all of our patrons on Patreon. I'm going to be doing exclusive content there tomorrow to the Patreon, just doing a Q&A to anybody available on Patreon, so look for me on there tomorrow, as well as continued Ukraine war coverage tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening. Take care. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.